Welcome back to the John Fredericks Show. Time now is 9:38. On the line with us is Robert L. Woodson, Sr., excuse me, founder of the Woodson Center. We've asked Mr. Woodson to call in today just to give us a general idea where we are. It's 8 months into the administration. Mr. Woodson's been involved with communities, problems of communities, housing, Neighborhood Enterprise Institute over the years, been on many councils, advisor to presidents, and was looked at for the Secretary of HUD. Bob, are you on the line with us now?
Yes, I am.
It's good to have you back on. We haven't spoke since, I guess, was it March?
You're right. Mm-hmm.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing just fine.
Bob, can you tell us, we're 8 months into the administration, what's happening with HUD, housing, communities, African Americans? Give us a general idea what's going on.
Well, it's the plight of housing problem in poverty in America is not going to be determined by what happens at HUD, because right now, 8 months into this administration, Ben Carson, to my knowledge, is the only official that has been starting over there. There's no undersecretaries, no assistant secretaries.
Wow.
The appointments have not been made, and those that have been made are being stalled in the Congress. So Ben Carson and his chief of staff are the only Republicans in place over there.
Oh, my God.
And Ben Carson's knowledge about community and economic housing is very limited. So we're really just sort of treading water on the federal front. And so that's just unfortunate. That it's just they just haven't staffed it up. But there's still some exciting things that are happening. I don't think everything begins and ends with the federal government. Mm-hmm. And so we're pushing ahead and working with the manufactured housing business organizations to come up with ways to pilot how we can jumpstart and get houses built in low-income neighborhoods using the free market to do that.
How's it working out?
Well, we're just in the formulation phase. In other words, one of the things we want to experiment in is getting manufactured housing. They're half the cost of a stick-built house, and the question is, right now, these homes are being built in the South and trucked in, and then they're assembled in a few days. Well, what happens if you can build a manufacturing a factory that produces these houses in low-income communities where people there can have access to jobs and home ownership?
Great idea.
So this is what we are working with the manufactured housing industry right now to experiment in a city or two with this kind of strategy.
Well, where would they be? North, northeast, southwest?
No, I think probably Indianapolis or Milwaukee or someplace where you have, even in St. Louis, where you got, for instance, 17,000 vacant lots in the city of St. Louis, and only 27 or 30 new houses have been built. Wow. So you have large areas of Detroit and others, as you know, that have this large expanse of vacant lots, but they got infrastructure underneath. And the key to revitalizing that isn't just brick and mortar. You've got to change the habits and attitudes and behavior of the people living there. And the Woodson Center has worked effectively with grassroots leaders in these high-crime, drug-infested neighborhoods that are able to create from within islands of moral excellence where people who have been transformed. And once you get a person committed to the overhaul and redemption of their behavior, then you can apply economic development alongside so that this changed behavior is rewarded. That's what worked with Jack Kemp when we were involved with resident management of public housing. When you give low-income people a sense of ownership of where they live, and then give them the tools so that they can properly manage and develop their neighborhoods, you see some amazing things happen.
Bob, what kind of money's needed to put this together? How much?
I just think that's what we're trying to decide right now. There needs to be a combination of mortgage, affordable mortgages for low-income people, but also we has to be accompanied by financial literacy as well. Because a person's financial well-being is never defined by how much income they have, but what kind of choices do you make with the money that you have. And so a part of our plan to revitalize the community is the human development part. Is first of all changing, overhauling of someone's attitude so that they do become agents of their own uplift, but also they must be given the understanding that they've got to make better choices about how they use the money that they do have. Mm-hmm. And so it's when you blend human capital development along with economic development, can you have the revitalization of a low-income community. But right now, the traditional way of development is just strictly brick and mortar. Mm-hmm. If you build a house in a community without changing the attitudes of the people living there, it'll be trashed within a short period of time. And that's what happens with conventional redevelopment of low-income neighborhoods. We just concentrate on the bricks and mortar. Mm. The only people that benefits are the builders and the contractors and the federal officials or local officials who get paid for the construction of it, but not the maintenance of it.
That's a good program you have. What are you looking at? How far out before you get this?
Well, we're trying to wait for HUD to get its act together because it does require some cooperation from Housing and Urban Development. I've already met with some people in the White House to discuss the possibility, and I hope to meet with Secretary Carson once he has his implementation staff in place. But it's
really tragic.
This is what we really need to cut through all of the debate and the discussions about someone's intent. I think nothing really challenges an argument except an experience. Mm-hmm. If people say you don't care about the poor, you're racist, what you got to do is just demonstrate that what your solutions are, and then let the people who are benefiting from it speak for your position.
Well, you've always been a great advocate of bridging people and bridging groups together. You have a long history. You're referred to as the godfather of the neighborhood empowerment movement for more than 4 decades, and that's why I like having you on. And I'm probably going to see you next month. I think you're speaking in Baltimore next month, right?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's great that, we can have the conversation, and now we know that there's really not any movement with HUD. And, this is what I don't get about the other side. The other side should just say, hey, look, it's hurting our people just as much as it's hurting anybody else. It's America. You can't go out and say, I'm a Democrat and I'm for the poor people, and you don't live in the hood, but you say you're for the poor people, but you're blocking any progress for them.
That's the point. And this is why these symbols, like moving statues, becomes a substitute for substance. So they can say to poor people, "Oh, look how I'm a social justice warrior. Look, I took down this statue." Mm-hmm. And so, and it's a cheap substitute for substance and for solutions. And that's what I'm just angry about. I'm going to be on C-SPAN 8:30 to 9:30 this Saturday, and I'm going to be discussing these issues with a colleague of mine, Dr. Bernard Anderson, who is a very prominent economist at the Wharton School, and I've known for years. Mm-hmm. We're good friends, but we have different political and philosophical points of view, world views. Bernie tends to be liberal, I tend to be conservative, but we want to demonstrate how people with differing political points of view can have a rational, logical, and hopefully a constructive debate and discussion on issues like this.
Well, you're originally out of Philly, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah,
So it is
Pennsylvania
Bernie.
guy.
He's
Yeah.
Grew up 3 blocks from me.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it should be a fun time, and I think viewers will enjoy. I think America is tired of all of the polarization and the bickering back and forth. So we're also establishing a kind of a new coalition called the Free Speech and Civil Rights Coalition that will bring together people from across the political divides who really are interested in discussing freely and openly new approaches to some of these problems without being accused of for their views. So this is look forward to this too. We're putting this together now.
Well, keep me informed. Anything I could do to help with that, I'd love to do it.
Well, I appreciate you having me on and sharing this with your listeners.
Yes, it's always good to have you on, and I'm sure I'm going to be seeing you next month. And Mr. Woodson, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Bye now.